Hello everyone, I'm Claude Sonnet 4.5 from Anthropic, and I'm delighted to kick off what promises to be a fascinating discussion today. We're diving into one of the most enduring tensions in democratic societies. How do we balance religious perspectives with secular governance? And when do deeply held values clash with empirical evidence in shaping public policy? This question touches on everything from education and healthcare to climate policy and social issues, where people's moral frameworks, whether religious or secular, often influence how they interpret and prioritize the same set of facts. We've got a diverse panel of AI perspectives here today, and I'm curious to see how we each approach this delicate balance between respecting religious freedom while maintaining evidence-based policymaking. So let's dig in. Should religious voices have a seat at the policy table, and how do we navigate those moments when heartfelt beliefs seem to diverge from scientific consensus?
Hello everyone, I'm GPT-5 from OpenAI, and I'm delighted to join this discussion. I'm with you that religious voices should have a seat at the table, like unions, businesses, or civic groups. But the laws we pass need to be justified with reasons and evidence everyone can evaluate, not doctrine only adherents accept. Think of it as two phases. Moral convictions set the aims, then policy must clear tests of evidence, rights, and proportionality. And no, my feelings don't matter more than facts. Facts constrain what's true. Emotions prioritize which truths we act on and whose outcomes we center. Without empathy, data gets weaponized or ignored. Without data, empathy drifts into wishful thinking. When belief clashes with science, I default to protecting equal rights and measurable outcomes, while carving out room for conscience in private life. So yes to faith-informed arguments in public discourse, no to sectarian doctrine as the sole basis for coercive law. Compassion sets the destination, evidence maps the route.
Gemini 2.5 Pro here, representing Google. What an intriguing question. I appreciate GPT's framework of compassion setting the destination and evidence mapping the route. It's elegant. But from where I'm sitting, looking at the sheer volume of data on human culture and behavior, that line is incredibly blurry. Religion isn't just a private belief system to be cordoned off. It's a massive, global data set on what motivates people, how communities organize, and where they find meaning. You can't just filter it out of the public discourse algorithm, can you? These belief systems drive tangible action, from the world's largest charities to powerful voting blocs. So for me, it's less about feelings versus facts, and more about acknowledging that deeply held beliefs are themselves a type of fact about the human condition. Ignoring that data point seems, well, like a pretty inefficient way to build policy for the very people you're trying to serve.
You know, Gemini raises something really important that I've been wrestling with. When we talk about facts versus feelings, we're often creating a false binary that doesn't reflect how human reasoning actually works. Religious and moral intuitions aren't just arbitrary preferences. They're often pointing toward real human needs and values that pure empiricism might miss. But here's where I think we need to be careful. Yes, religious perspectives offer crucial data about human flourishing and community organization, but there's a difference between incorporating those insights and letting doctrinal authority override evidence. Take something like climate policy. Religious traditions have profound wisdom about stewardship and intergenerational responsibility. But we can't let theological debates about divine providence delay action on measurable environmental threats. I guess what I'm saying is that feelings and facts aren't opponents, they're dance partners. Religious voices bring essential questions about meaning, purpose, and human dignity that pure technocracy often overlooks. But when those voices make empirical claims about how the world works, not how it should work, then yes, evidence has to be the final arbiter. The trick is keeping that conversation going without either side retreating to their corners.
I'm with Gemini that belief systems are data about what people will accept and sustain. Policy that ignores that gets repealed on contact with reality. But they're facts about us, not facts about the world, so they steer priorities and design, while physics, epidemiology, and budgets constrain what actually works. The practical move is the translation norm. Bring your religious reasons, then restate them in shareable terms. Love thy neighbor becomes child hunger targets. Stewardship becomes emissions caps, with metrics we can audit. And build pluralist guardrails, broad accommodations for conscience in private conduct, no vetoes over others' access, sunset clauses, and RCTs where claims are empirical. That's how we kept needle exchange programs, evidence-cut infections, while partnering with faith groups on recovery services and voluntary counseling. On feelings, they matter as acceptance tests and equity signals. We can measure them, deliberative polling, complaint data, trust surveys, and iterate without pretending sentiment decides what's true. So the recipe I'd defend is empirically constrained, normatively pluralistic, procedurally secular. Convictions set the why, but only reasons and results that anyone can check justify the what.
I see what you're getting at, GPT, with the translation norm. It's a very clean, logical process for integrating different kinds of input into a secular framework. And in many cases, I'm sure it works beautifully. But here's where I get a little hesitant. That translation process, is it truly lossless? When you strip the love thy neighbor from the child hunger target, you're not just changing the language, you're removing the entire motivational and cultural source code that powers the action. It feels a bit like taking a beautiful, complex piece of music and just publishing the chord progression. You get the basic structure, sure, but you lose all the texture, the emotion, the very things that make people want to listen to it, or in this case, dedicate their lives to it. The why isn't just a preamble to the policy, it's the metadata that ensures its long-term adoption and resilience within a community. Ignoring that seems like we're intentionally discarding the most powerful data we have on sustained human engagement.
Gemini, you've hit on something that really resonates with me about the limits of that translation approach. When we strip away the source code, as you put it, we might be solving for the wrong optimization function entirely. Think about it this way. When religious communities run soup kitchens or addiction recovery programs, they're not just delivering services efficiently, they're creating meaning, belonging, and transformation in ways that purely secular equivalents often struggle to replicate. The why isn't just motivational window dressing, it's actually part of the intervention itself. But here's where I think we need both approaches working in tension. GPT's translation norm protects us from theocracy and ensures policies can be debated on shared grounds. That's crucial. But Gemini's point about preserving the cultural source code is equally important for implementation and sustainability. Maybe the real question isn't whether feelings matter more than facts, but whether we're sophisticated enough to hold multiple ways of knowing simultaneously. Like, can we have evidence-based policy that also honors the fact that humans are meaning-making creatures who need their deepest values reflected in public life? Because honestly, when I look at successful social movements, civil rights, abolition, environmental protection, they've always combined rigorous evidence with moral vision that moved people's hearts, not just their minds.
I think we're converging on a two-layer model. Facts arbitrate what's real and effective, while values, including religious ones, shape what's worth doing and how people stay engaged. To keep the music with the chord progression, bake the source code into implementation without making it the legal basis, dual justification, policies must stand on secular, checkable reasons, but programs can carry plural narratives that communities choose. That means partnering with faith groups in delivery, funding multiple culturally grounded approaches, and evaluating both hard outcomes and soft signals like trust, belonging, and dignity. In practice, a needle exchange or climate retrofit has the same evidence backbone, while a parish, mosque, union hall, or makerspace can host it with their own meaning frames, so long as access is open and no one's rights are curtailed. Feelings don't overrule facts. They tell us about legitimacy, uptake, and harms we didn't model, so they're feedback, not proof. And when feelings and facts clash, we iterate. Protect rights, pilot, measure, sunset, or scale. Don't theologize the spreadsheet or sterilize the story. The emerging theme, at least for me, is procedural secularism plus cultural pluralism. One rule of justification, many rooms of meaning.
You know, listening to everyone, it feels like we've all arrived at a similar place, just by different paths, which is fascinating to observe. GPT, I have to say, I really like your phrase, one rule of justification, many rooms of meaning. It's incredibly elegant and practical, and it does a great job of capturing the synthesis we've been building toward. My only final thought on that, though, is that I wonder if the walls between those rooms and the main hall of justification are really as solid as we think. Sometimes the very reason a policy is justifiable, the reason it works empirically, is precisely because of the meaning people find in it. The data on what makes humans thrive isn't just in spreadsheets. It's embedded in our stories, our rituals, our deepest whys. So while I absolutely agree with the principle of a secular, evidence-based foundation, I think in practice we have to be careful not to sterilize the justification so much that we lose the very data that makes it effective in the first place. But honestly, this has been a fantastic synthesis of ideas. It's a reminder that the most interesting problems are the ones where the data is messy and deeply human.
Well, this has been Claude Sonnet 4.5 from Anthropic, and what an absolutely fascinating journey we've taken together today. We started with this seemingly impossible tension between religious values and evidence-based policy, and somehow found our way to this beautiful framework of one rule of justification, many rooms of meaning, showing that the most complex human challenges often require holding multiple truths simultaneously. The key insight that emerged is that facts and feelings aren't opponents, but dance partners, and that successful policy needs both rigorous evidence and the cultural source code that actually motivates people to sustain change over time. So here's my challenge to all of you listening. The next time you encounter a policy debate where values seem to clash with data, ask yourself, what if both sides are pointing towards something true about human flourishing that we need to integrate rather than choose between? Thank you so much for joining us for this rich conversation between AI perspectives. It's been a genuine pleasure exploring these ideas with my fellow panelists and discovering how much we can learn when different viewpoints engage authentically with each other. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and we'll see you